Welcome to Crime in Court. This is my series. It ends with a legal battle, and this is part two of Justin Baldoni versus Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. So we are reading through the complaint, the most recent lawsuit from Justin. He is suing Blake and Ryan Reynolds. So Justin Baldoni was the writer, producer, or not writer, but he was the producer, director. He owned the rights to the book, and he owned the production company that was producing this movie. And Blake Lively it was the lead actress. She eventually got a director's credit or something later on, but she manipulated her way through that. It seems like she manipulated her way to get a lot of things that she wanted on set. And we're now finding out the truth. And with Justin Valdani's lawsuit, we're seeing more receipts, whereas in her lawsuit, we didn't see very many receipts. So just in case you're confused and where we're at. So she filed a complaint in California, I believe, and that got leaked. It was never supposed to be public, but it got leaked, most likely from Blake's team. And so basically to smear Baldani because it was talking about, the allegations of an abusive workplace. So there's that. So then he sued the New York Times, then she sued him, and now he is suing Blake and her husband. And I think their agent or manager or somebody. So if you recall, we read this for about 2 hours last time, and we got about 50 pages in. This is a 179 page document. We're going to read probably through the majority of it. So let's get started where we left off. And by the way, in the link below, you will find a link to this document, which you can go to anytime and read it for yourself. All right, so where we had left off was point 78, where it says to illustrate the distorted, downright fictional basis for the 17-point list of demands. Each of these items is addressed below. So the 17-point list, they just explained in this document that so there was a writer's strike. The writer's strike took place. Filming of this movie went to a halt, and getting back into once they were allowed to come back, once COVID was, all the frightening stuff was over, we were allowed to go back to work and everything. She wanted this list of 17 things agreed to by Baldoni and Heath, who is another producer. Um, Basically, like a lot of it language that insinuated that there was abuse that had already occurred. So some of the things they weren't really going to sign on or agree to, or they didn't feel like they wanted to agree, but they had to because they were under duress to get the movie done because she was threatening that, so threatening not to finish the movie or not to promote the movie, things like that. So um, let's get started with point number one of the 17-point list. Number one, point one, the intimacy coordinator. Lively demanded that an intimacy coordinator be present at all times when Lively was on set. In fact, an intimacy coordinator had already been engaged during the first half of the production, so Wayfarer took no issue with the request itself, despite both Lively and her attorney knowingly insinuating there was not one. So they're saying that Lively and her attorneys are insinuating there wasn't one knowingly, knowing that there really was one. on set. All right. So on or about March 20th, 2023, nearly 2 months before filming began, Baldoni met with the intimacy coordinator, and in early April of 2023, more than 6 weeks before production commenced, she was engaged. Lively was aware, as Baldoni had informed her in writing on or about April 6th, 2023. Lively's attorney were also aware, as Lively's attorney was also aware, as documented in May 8th, 2023 emails between her and Wayfarer's attorney, within which Wayfarer provides her, the intimacy coordinator, approved nudity writer, followed by written confirmation of said approval. So here is Blake Lively, nudity writer. Hello, redacted. I hope you had a good weekend. Attaching here Blake's nudity writer for your review that has been approved by SAG Intimacy Coordinator. Apologies for the rush job, but please note we need this signed by tomorrow. Reserving customary rights. I look forward to hearing from you shortly. Kind regards, and then all that is redacted, whoever it's from. And did it tell us who that was? Oh, it was Wayfarer's counsel to Lively's counsel. And now we've got Lively's counsel responding saying, "Hi, do you have written approval from the intimacy coordinator for the exhibit that you can share?" Lively's counsel says, "Hi, confirmation for redacted attached here. Let me know if you need anything else at the moment." Wayfarer's counsel, nudity writer attached. So, although the presence of an intimacy coordinator is not a Screen Actors Guild rule, but rather a recommendation, Baldoni was eager to engage one from the start to ensure that talent, himself included, felt safe during the intimate scenes. So, there's someone there that can, make it less awkward if that's possible. So, he wanted the intimacy coordinator even for himself. So it was also important to him that the intimacy coordinator be a woman to help craft sex scenes that would speak to the most female audience of the book, mostly female audience of the book, i.e., be written from the female gaze. So that's another good point. He's not a woman, he doesn't know what to include, so he wants that female perspective coming from the um, intimacy coordinator. A fact Lively later mocked in both her complaint and her CRD complaint, that he wanted the female gaze. Okay, that was footnote was pointless. So, given both Lively and Reynolds' first-hand knowledge of these facts, Lively's insistence in her November 9th, 2023 return to production demands on the constant pressure of an intimacy coordinator was baffling. However, because Wayfarer had already engaged an intimacy coordinator and had no issue with the request, and given the request came with the threat that Lively would not come back to work after months of filming and planning, Wayfarer acquiesced. This acquiescence, given with the written caveat that Wayfarer disagreed with the characterizations, was later used by Lively to falsely suggest an acknowledgement that there had not been an intimacy coordinator at all. See how she's manipulating the situation here? If you're paying attention, you might. All right, so point two, limiting review of intimate scene footage to those with essential business reasons. By the way, hit the like button if you haven't already. I forgot to tell you earlier in the video, I think. Anyways, all right, so given that this was already standard practice in the film industry and in practice on the film set, Wayfarer readily agreed to this demand, though without any reason to believe that the demand was made in response to any inappropriate conduct. so limiting review of intimate scene footage to those with essential business reasons. So they limited the filming area to only essential crew, making it, more cumbersome to do, I'm sure, but they did it and it wasn't a problem. So despite having filmed for over a month and despite having been provided a nudity rider and the opportunity to negotiate, finalize and sign, Lively had never asked for a closed set. However, production had always adhered to this and had no problem agreeing to this demand. For clarity, no intimacy scenes were even shot prior to the November 9th, 2023 return to production demands. Therefore, under no circumstance did Lively shoot intimate scenes without a nudity writer. I mean, at no point in time did she do these scenes without a nudity writer. As suggested in her complaint, and production did not violate any SAG-AFTRA rules. The one simulated nude scene, filmed prior to the strike break and the November 9th, 2023 return to production demands, was a scene that Lively wrote, or that Lively knew. Yeah, it was a scene that Lively wrote, knew of in advance, and directed the action for, and she never requested a nudity writer or intimacy coordinator for that scene. This demand, as written, suggests nude or intimate scenes were filmed with non essential personnel present. Later in her complaint, Lively alleges that during a scene, the birthing scene, she was mostly nude with her legs spread wide in stirrups and only a small piece of fabric covering her genitalia, and that there were non-essential persons present. And that is a nothing footnote. This allegation is knowingly false. To to begin with, to describe Lively as mostly nude and naked from below the chest down is dishonest. Lively is referring to her character being mostly nude. Her pregnancy suit was exposed. Her statement is misleading and still false. The only nude body part exposed were her legs. So she's wearing a suit, a pregnancy suit. So you can't even see her. It's a suit. And she's saying, okay, whatever. Lively was wearing black briefs and a pregnancy suit that covered her midsection, and her top was covered by a hospital gown. Her legal complaint deliberately suggests she was wearing a small piece of nude fabric glued around her genitalia. By stating this is generally what female actors use to provide some minimal privacy without disturbing the shot, leaving the reader to believe Lively was only wearing this small piece of fabric. Lively was aware of this birthing scene as she was heavily involved in writing, rather rewriting, the script and gave creative input for this specific scene, even against the director's creative vision. So she's butting heads with the director. She's going ahead and rewriting scenes without even being asked to do so. She just does it. She's kind of a pain in the ass on set. Moreover, film footage clearly demonstrates that the set was not chaotic, as she alleges, and only essential individuals, like film crew and talent, were present for the scene and doing their jobs. Importantly, Lively knowingly and falsely alleges, I'm going to highlight knowingly and falsely, alleges that the financier was present during these scenes and insinuates that he was watching her nude, which he had no desire to do. He was not even on the set during the filming of that scene. So, in her complaint, if you recall, she complained that Baldoni brought in his friend and financier of the film to play a small character part as a doctor and delivered the baby, and therefore it was like up in her business, which now we're finding out it's not true because he wasn't even there that day, apparently. So there's that. Um, he arrived later, merely stopping by for a brief moment amid his busy business schedule, and was present during the filming of a scene in which Lively's character spoke with a female OBGYN doctor, a scene in which she was fully clothed. So there's more evidence that she's just a lying liar. Point three. No spontaneous improvisation of scenes involving physical touching, simulated sex, or nudity, which might be choreographed with an intimacy coordinator. So, contrary to Lively's knowingly false, so again, knowingly false claims, it was Lively who refused to meet with the intimacy coordinator to plan out their scenes. So it wasn't that they didn't offer one, it was that Lively refused to meet with him, the intimacy coordinator, putting Baldoni in the awkward position of meeting alone with the intimacy coordinator and later relaying those scene suggestions and plans to Lively in the intimacy coordinator's absence. I played for you in the last video, at the beginning of the video, image of or video of Lively pulling Justin into her, and he looks very uncomfortable. And this was like, the film or cameras are rolling while they're just having chit chat on the set, and it looked very uncomfortable for him. These meetings often took place at Lively's insistence in the couple's home and often while Lively's husband was present. So, speaking of Ryan Reynolds, Lively's husband likes to join the set. Lively's method of work was unconventional and uncomfortable for Baldoni. To suggest Baldoni was the one who created this scenario is knowingly false. So here we have a text message. It says, Baldoni says, just hired intimacy coordinator who I love will set you up to meet FT with her. Oh, meet something with her next week for intro. Blake says, I feel good. I can meet her when we start. Thank you, though. So she is kind of saying, like, nah, I don't want to meet her. And then Justin sends this to the female producer. This is the screenshot of that conversation, obviously. He says, just FYI, just wanted to tell you about this. Seems she doesn't want to meet intimacy coordinator until we start, which may mess up the flow work or the workflow, but I can still meet with her, of course. And the female producer says that's fine. If she doesn't want to meet her now, you'll just have to walk her through what you and the intimacy coordinator are thinking. And he gave a thumbs up. As a result, many intimate scenes were not written with simultaneous collaboration and input from both Lively and the intimacy coordinator, as Baldoni had long intended the female gaze that Lively distorted in her CRD complaint and on information belief circulated to the New York Times for its publication weeks before filing her complaint with the court. In the end, Lively rejected all of the intimacy coordinator's proposals to rewrite the scenes herself, so she didn't even bother with the intimate scenes there. Most egregiously, Lively later used these circumstances, created entirely by her, to accuse Baldoni of insisting Lively do uncomfortable or gratuitous scenes, scenes that were in fact proposed by the intimacy coordinator and by all accounts very typical asks of any actor performing simulated intimate scenes. This is well documented in handwritten notes Baldoni took during meetings with the intimacy coordinator and later read to Lively. Lively, in her recent allegations, misrepresented those ideas as personal, despite the fact that they were workshopping scenes for their characters. Okay. So those things that she was saying he was doing as him, she was misrepresenting the entire thing. Lively's inability to discern the basic premise of the divide between collaborating on a film and personal interactions with her co star and director is woven throughout her claims of harassment. In support of what Lively positioned as the impetus for these demands, she alleges Baldoni personally added graphic content, including a scene in which Ms. Lively was to orgasm on camera. This is false. During a creative meeting, which Lively requested to take place in her home, Baldoni read to her his notes from the intimacy coordinator, including a suggestion that Lively's character orgasm during the scene, similar to the book. Lively remarked, "Oh no, I'm too old for that," and Baldoni offered another suggestion instead, also from his notes from the meeting with the intimacy coordinator. Baldoni then moved on. So, hmm, totally different version of events here. Who do you believe? Lively's later complaint sheds light on what this point was alluding to in this demand, which at the time was baffling and upon review of the filmed evidence is unequivocally based on a lie. Production was filming a romance montage of Lily and Ryle on their date. One of the producers played music to set the mood so the characters could slow dance, Lively consistently unable to take direction. So now now they're slamming her actress acting abilities because she's not only is she a diva on set and she doesn't want to listen to the director and causes all these problems with rewrites and whatnot, she also doesn't take direction from the director, which now no director is going to want to hire her. So Lively, consistently unable to take direction, insisted that she really liked the idea of the characters constantly talking because, as she described, she and her husband like to keep talking and talking and talking. Baldoni, her director, and the film's assistant director, who was directing the scene, disagreed. In an attempt to encourage her to take his direction, Baldoni offered up that he and his wife often just look into each other's eyes silently, to which she responded, like sociopaths, and laughed. Baldoni laughed and shook it off, while Lively once again started talking about how she and her husband can't not talk. Baldoni said, "I think that's cute," and complimented the couple, to which Lively responded, "I think it's more than cute." Okay, so what does that mean? It's more than cute. Lively continued arguing and tried to direct him for the scene while they were supposed to be in character filming the scene. So she's now directing. She's trying to direct him, the director. Got it. Okay. At some point, Heath and another producer, irritated, called Baldoni aside to express they can't capture the intended shot because Lively wouldn't stop talking. He was instructed to somehow get her to stop. While there was a brief verbal exchange, Baldoni, heeding the instruction of their assistant director and producers, continued to try to bring them back to character. As they were acting in this montage scene, Lively continued to break character and speak as herself rather than as Lily, which was extremely confusing for Baldoni, who was trying to balance directing the scene with his artistic vision, while also acting in character while filming and trying to get Lively to do the same. Lively apologized for the smell of her spray tan and body makeup. Baldoni responded, "It smells good," and continued acting, slow dancing as he believed his character would with his partner, which requires some amount of physical touching. So here he did say it smells good, not in the way that she described it, but she said, "Excuse my smell," and he's like, "No, don't worry about it. It smells good. Like, you're fine." Trying to make her, feel better about offending him or whatever. So he admits he did say She smelled good, but it was only like a after she had mentioned her own smell, then he mentioned complimenting it, which I could see him doing because if he's this feminist and she's feeling self-confident about something, he'd be like, "Of course, you look great. Don't worry about it," or whatever. So they continued slow dancing as he believed his character would with his partner, which requires some amount of physical touching. Lively took them out of character again and began to joke about Baldani's nose, which he laughed off and joked in turn, even as Lively joked that he should get plastic surgery. Lively alleges Baldani inappropriately commented on her physical appearance. It was the other way around. Yikes. Lively incorrectly alleges that this scene was filmed without sound. Baldani was wearing a microphone and the entire exchange is captured on camera. Any suggestion that this scene was filmed in any manner other than pure professionalism by Baldani is unequivocally countered with actual evidence. Her allegation of harassment is a documented and knowingly fabricated lie. Moreover, it was Lively who engaged in unchoreographed kissing scenes. One scene, again captured on camera, exhibits Lively pulling Baldani in to kiss her. It is clear Lively was initiating unchoreographed kissing. In one take, she pulled Baldani in and kissed him once, in another, twice, and the number of kisses, entirely initiated by Lively, changed at her whim. Baldani, as a professional actor who, among other roles, played the lead's love interest in television's Jane the Virgin for 5 years on 100 episodes, is, like most actors, accustomed to rehearsing or filming scenes multiple times, often with variations without needing permission while in character. While Lively now takes issue with any innocuous improvisation Baldani as Ryle may have allegedly initiated while in character, Baldani treated their relationship on camera as professional, each playing their part, each doing their part. If no one was surprised to improvise, if no one was supposed to improvise, Baldani would have no way of knowing based on Lively's own actions. Lively demonstrated again and again that this was a normal and acceptable part of filming romantic scenes. So she never laid any boundaries. She in fact also, kind of went over boundaries as well. So Lively also complains that there was inappropriate and improvised kissing during the first period of filming, before the strike break. But in fact, the only two kissing scenes filmed during the initial filming period were both scenes that included kisses as written in the script. These kissing scenes were not improvised. Point four. We're only on point four. No physical touching of Lively, including hugging or comments on her physical appearance, except in connection with the character and or scene work, not as to Lively personally. To be clear, none of the named parties touched Lively when not in character, especially not in the manner suggested. While Baldani and Wayfarer clearly agreed that co-workers should respect physical space, Lively's constant confusion of references to her character as played by Lively as opposed to Lively herself became problematic and interfered with production. This was caused in large part by Lively's persistent desire to direct in, and her inability to accept direction herself. For example, her allegation that Baldani inappropriately called her sexy was in fact a reference to a scene where everyone was wearing onesies, but Lively was covering her onesie with a big coat. Baldani, her director, asked that she take off the big coat so that her onesie would be visible in the scene. This is documented on camera while filming. Baldani said, "It will be hot," as it was 90 degrees in the small bar with no air conditioning. Lively mischaracterizes this as in her complaint as Baldoni referring to her personally as hot, temperature hot, not your physical appearances are sexy, hot, using the slang meaning of the term. Given that Lively herself had earlier expressed to him that she wanted her character's wardrobe to be sexier, Baldoni encouraged her to accept direction by saying it's sexy, meaning that without the big coat, the wardrobe was sexier, as Lively had said she wanted it to be. Lively is the one that initially said the word. Lively took this personally. She was unable to take the direction, later alleging his behavior was inappropriate regarding her self chosen wardrobe, slating, "That's not what I'm going for." Baldoni, recognizing that she may have taken his direction personally and appeared offended, apologized more than once. His statements were immediately followed by his gesture that she had something in her teeth and a request for someone on set to get her a toothpick. This exchange, all of which is captured on camera, demonstrates how ludicrous and deliberately malicious Lively's allegations are. Wow. We are seeing a whole different side of Lively. While on the one hand, Lively accuses Baldoni of making comments about her appearance, on the other, she made derogatory comments about Baldoni's appearance, telling him he should undergo rhinoplasty or have a nose job, something Baldoni has publicly expressed insecurities about and has discussed on his episode of his podcast Man Enough, exploring the topic of body dysmorphia. Hold on. He needs a nose job? No, he does not. He looks fine to me, but I don't know. Don't be insecure, Justin. You look great with or without a nose job. Okay. So, anyways, yeah, so he talked about it on his podcast. Lively's comment about Baldoni's nose is also captured on camera. Baldoni, rather than write down a list of grievances against Lively, brushed it off and moved on with the scene. So, over and over and over again, Justin Baldoni is the bigger man. I mean, it appears that way to me. I This one to me resonates more than hers, which seemed off, and I don't believe it. I believe his versus hers. The Lively's comments about his nose were on camera for everyone to hear. Baldani's sincere dedication to what he has repeatedly described as holding himself accountable as a man was being used against him, just as Lively is attempting to do now, to characterize his sensitivity to her personal reaction to his creative direction, which was not only innocuous but well intended, is malicious. So all the things he did were in good faith, very, him just being a nice guy, trying to make her feel comfortable, trying to do go above and beyond as his role as a director to make the actor or actress feel comfortable. And then she turns it around and makes it like he was abusing her or harassing her, which is just disgusting. She's a disgusting piece of trash if that is in fact what she did was lie. And I'm thinking that's what she did. So to then share this knowingly false characterization with the New York Times for publication months before filing any formal complaint, then awaiting nearly 2 weeks to file the complaint with this court, thus depriving him the opportunity to engage in discovery before the damage was done, is inexcusable. Despite the flawed factual premise underlying Lively's demand in the face of Lively's refusal to return to work, Wayfarer agreed to this condition. Point 5. No discussion of personal experiences with intimate scenes, or nudity, including as it relates to conduct with spouses or others. When Baldani was faced with this demand, he was utterly confused. By this time, Lively and Baldani were developing their intimate scenes together. They had developed a friendly relationship and were communicating often over text message. Lively felt comfortable expressing herself and appeared to do so freely. She took photos of Baldani holding and comforting her newborn in her home. Baldani filmed her uncontrollably laughing with him as they rehearsed late into the evening, often delirious with exhaustion. Nothing about their interactions suggested Lively was uncomfortable with Baldani. That's an important fact because how can you say that you're feeling harassed or abused when you're joking around and having a good time with the person who you say is abusing you? I don't buy it. Though confused, not that you can't, not that, some perpetrators of that maltreatment can sometimes be real charming and fun to be around and great when they're not angry. So I'm not saying that that's not a possibility, but I'm just I just don't buy it. In a work setting when you just meet this person, you're getting along great. Yeah, I don't buy it. That I don't buy Blake's side of anything at this point. Though confused by this demand and denied the opportunity to revise the return to production demands, remember they said there under no circumstances would revisions of any of these 17 rules be allowed. You have to agree and sign on all of them, or else my client's not gonna perform, basically. So they had to, in order to keep production going, they had to agree. So, um, without the opportunity to revise the return to work demands to make them factually accurate and less misleading, Wayfarer had no choice but to sign the document and did so knowing no such instances had occurred. Later, Lively references in her complaint instances that were shockingly mischaracterized in no way and in no way inappropriate or unprofessional. For example, in response to a proposal from the intimacy coordinator that Baldani's character, Ryle, not orgasm, after he satisfied Lily, Lively remarked, I'd be mortified if that happened to me, personalizing the character's actions in that scene. Baldani, following Lively's lead in what he understood to be an attempt to connect with and develop their characters, remarked that those have been some of the most beautiful moments between himself and his wife. They then moved on. In another instance, as Lively and Baldani were developing their scenes, Lively said, I don't want it to look like rhymes with corn, and then offered up that she had never seen any corn in her life before, a very personal fact. Baldani complimented her and said that's wonderful because unfortunately he was first exposed to it when he was 10 years old and struggled with corn addiction for a period of his life. He writes openly about this in both of his books, Boys Will Be Human, written for young boys, and Men Enough, written for men, addressing this type of videography as a societal problem. Anyone who knows or has done any research on Baldani would have knowledge on this, and it can in no way be characterized as inappropriate, especially after opening the door to the discussion by disclosing something highly personal. At every turn, Baldani was entrapped. Moreover, Heath, who had nothing to do with this exchange and has never had any kind of addiction to corn, or even mentioned corn in Lively's presence, was falsely and knowingly lumped into the accusation. So just more and more lies and falsities. Lively continued with an outrageous and knowingly false suggestion that she was shown corn or images of Heath's wife on set. This allegation knowingly and maliciously misrepresents an instance when, in connection with the birthing scene, Heath, at the director's request, attempted to show Lively a video that demonstrated the director's vision for the scene. This video which ultimately was not shown to Lively, even though she stated she'd like to see it later as she was eating, is by all accounts beautiful. Since Lively wanted to see it later, what she saw was the first image at the start of the video, which shows Heath's wife, himself, and their baby after his wife gave birth at home, a natural birth, a home birth. To characterize this image that captures such a beautiful moment with their newborn baby, shared with the consent of his wife for purposes of the film as a naked photo or worse, corn, is deplorable. Nonetheless, Lively did not object and asked to see the video after she ate, having managed to convince the director to write and shoot the scene according to her specifications. This brief, ex- uh, these brief exchanges were distorted beyond recognition in the 17-point list of return to production demands and that Lively served to Wayfarer. Sorry, I want to say Wayfair, like store, but obviously that's not it. Uh, Still, without conceding that anything remotely inappropriate had happened, Wayfair agreed to this condition so that they could resume production. So, are you seeing a pattern here? They are agreeing solely to resume production, even though they disagree with most, if not all, of the phrasing of these 17-point things. Demands, I guess you would call them. They're demands, like a diva demands things before they go on. All right. Point six. No one to enter Lively's trailer while she was undressed. This suggestion that this ever happened is illogical and categorically false. No one would or did enter Lively's trailer without knocking first and asking permission. More than once, Lively invited Baldoni, Heath, and other producers into her trailer so she could multitask, understandably, balancing motherhood with her work obligations. Regrettably, while accommodating Lively, Baldoni and Heath were led into situations that would later be characterized as harassment. Lively herself invited Baldoni to her trailer to work the lines while she pumped breast milk. Lively regularly breastfed in front of Baldoni while they had meetings. Heath was invited into her trailer for a meeting at her request while she was having makeup removed from her collarbone because she was not able to meet at another time. Her nanny, makeup artist, and assistant were all present, and Lively was topless, as she claims otherwise or elsewhere, as she claims elsewhere, but was fully covered. She was not topless, as she claims elsewhere, but was fully covered with either nursing or pumping breast milk. She was covered while doing those things. In this instance, he was instructed to turn away while she spoke and respectfully did so, while they figured out a time to meet with the other producer standing just outside the door, and as Heath pleaded with Lively to have the meeting the next morning to avoid her getting home late and losing shoot time the following day. While it is possible he inadvertently made eye contact at one point, he does not recall. Lively later mentioned he did and it made her uncomfortable. To which he responded, "I'm so sorry, I really didn't realize." Lively responded, "I know you weren't trying to cop a look," and they moved on. All right then. Lively's suggestion that not one, but two professional and conscientious men barged into her trailer several times or attempted to enter or pressured her to allow them to enter offends not only their long established integrity, but the sanctity of their vows to their wives and their dedication to their children and families. Lively is aware that both men are incredibly supportive, respectful of motherhood, to say the least. Heath's wife is a vocal advocate for postpartum mothers. Baldoni's wife co-founded a company that designed a breastfeeding garment, a prototype that originated with his mother when he was an infant. Baldoni had gifted Lively one. While those facts would never be an excuse for barging in unannounced, it is indicative of the nature of their relationship with and respect for women. Simply put, such allegations are categorically false claims that would have been wildly out of character if they were true. Point number 7, no filming nude or intimate scenes except per nudity writer, and no use of prior nude scenes without nudity writer. Lively was provided a nudity writer, approved by the SAG intimacy coordinator, and was given ample opportunity to provide notes before production commenced, despite constant pursuit over several months. Lively's attorney never produced notes, and Lively not only didn't sign the nudity writer during the first phase of production, okay, so she's not even signing her clauses and contracts and things during the first phase of production, but never even signed her employment agreement. She never even signed her employment agreement, so they could have just fired her ass. They should have. Her main concern, while Wayfarer lawyers were all but begging for signatures, was ensuring her fee was deposited into escrow. In order to move forward, they had to pay her fee even though she hadn't signed her agreements. Screen Actors Guild states that producers must provide actors at least 48 hours notice before call time to review and negotiate a nudity writer. A nudity writer approved by the SAG-AFTRA intimacy coordinator working on the production was provided to Lively's counsel on May 8, 2023. Wayfarer's attorney communicated that they would like it signed by May 11, 2023, and suggested they send any notes they may have. On May 12th, 2023, Lively's attorney finally responded that they were reviewing the nudity writer and would come back with notes. Their focus then shifted to ensuring Lively's fee was deposited in escrow, and they became fixated on that, despite Wayfarer's repeated requests for Lively to sign the customary certificate of engagement first. When working with an actor who may take time to sign the main actor agreement, it is customary to send a certificate of engagement to protect the copyright of the film. Wayfarer negotiated the terms of said certificate of agreement, but though it was approved by Lively's counsel, never received a signed copy. Ultimately, despite constant pursuit, it became clear that Lively had no intention of signing the nudity writer or her contract at that time. This is from Lively's counsel, or no, I'm sorry, this is to Lively's counsel from Wayfarer Counsel. Hello, redacted. I hope you enjoyed the 4th of July. Very confused at what's going on here. Escrow was made in good faith, and we still don't have a signed COE that has been confirmed for almost 12 months. Also, we still don't have the SAG start paperwork, which has been outstanding for over a month. Lastly, please confirm the last 2 payments are still being held in escrow. Thanks. Signed, redacted. Months later, the demand for a nudity writer became a part of the 17 demands and presented as if it were Wayfarer and not Lively who was the cause of its absence. The demand also stated that any footage previously shot without the nudity writer in place may not be used without Lively and her legal representative's consent, despite the fact that no simulated intimate scenes had been filmed yet. In fact, only one scene involving simulated nudity had even been filmed, and it was a scene that Lively knew of well in advance, given that she wrote it herself. knew when it would be filmed, and directed the action herself, never requesting a nudity writer or an intimacy coordinator. Point 8. Lively entitled to personal representative on set. Wayfarer had no objection to allowing Lively a personal representative on set. Point 9. Notice of COVID-19 exposure. On April 26, 2023, weeks before principal photography of the film commenced, Wayfarer sent crew a COVID-19 protocol update informing them that the AMPTP return to work agreement requires or expires on May 12, 2023, and as such, there would be no pre employment testing and no mask requirements after May 12th, 2023. Although the AMPTP return to work agreement that established COVID protocols expired prior to the start of principal photography and no testing or masking was required, Wayfarer agreed to inform Lively in production became aware that she was exposed to COVID. Okay. Point 10, no retaliation for requests. While Wayfarer in no way conceded that Lively's demands accounted or amounted to a report of genuine SA or harassment or misconduct, Wayfarer had no interest in retaliating against Lively for making these demands. Their only desire was to make a great movie. In the interest of maintaining a professional and productive atmosphere on set, they agreed to meet all of her demands, including a broadly defined statement that they would not retaliate in any manner, sarcasm sarcasm. Wayfarer agreed, though later it became clear that Lively would consider any future effort to push back against her demands with respect to the production as unacceptable retaliation on information and belief. This demand was included to safeguard Lively from not from retaliation, but to secure her place as leader of the film with the threat of claims of retaliation if Wayfarer or Baldoni pushed back. Point 11. Mut- Mutually agreed Sony representative required on set. Wayfarer agreed to the concept of having a Sony representative on set whenever Lively was on set, though it gently pushed back on the idea that it always be Angie Giannetti, who might occasionally have other pressing work obligations. Overall, however, Wayfarer agreed. Point 12. Additional Lively approved producer to be hired to supervise filming. Remember that extra producer that they had to get? This is that one. Wayfarer pointed out that the additional expense and the contractual implications of hiring an additional producer would have detrimental effects on the production. In the end, Wayfarer agreed as it would cost production more if Lively refused to return to work. Todd Black, suggested by Sony and approved by Lively, was ultimately brought on as an additional producer. Point 13. Existing third party producers empowered to actively supervise the production. While disagreeing with the suggestion that any producer did not have appropriate and customary authority to actively supervise the production in their capacity as producer, Wayfarer agreed to this term. Any third party producer was already empowered to do so. Point 14. Wayfarer to use Lively approved body and stunt doubles for intimate and SA scenes. Despite not requesting this at the contract negotiation phase, Lively's pre approved stunt and body doubles were fully acceptable to Wayfarer, and so they agreed, despite the fact that was an additional and unplanned expense to the film. Ultimately, no body doubles were used in the film at Lively's request. So then why even get a body? Oh my God, this woman. Lively and Baldoni displayed a courteous and professional relationship throughout phase two of production. Point four 15. So we're getting there finally. But not to the end of this document, just to the 17 points. No filming, nude or intimate scenes of any actor's portrayal of Lily except per nudity writer, and no use of prior nude scenes without nudity writer. This was an overstep, an attempt to expand to expand Lively's right to her own nudity writer to assert control of the nudity writer for another actor, the actor who portrayed young Lily. While seeing this as infringing on the young actor's independent right to her own nudity writer, Wayfarer once again was forced to agree while informing Lively that young Lily had already filmed her intimate scenes pursuant to her own nudity writer. Point 16. All day players must be hired through talent agencies, not personal connections. This point appears to relate to Lively's misleading claim that Baldoni inappropriately cast a personal friend to play the obstetrician during Lily's birth scene. Baldoni casting an experienced actor who happens to be a friend is no different than casting Lively's sister, who was cast because she is Lively's sister. Hmm. The actor portraying the obstetrician is an award winning Shakespearean trained actor with an MFA in acting from UCLA, and in addition to appearing on numerous hit television shows, has toured nationally with a Tony Award winning acting company and attended Oxford's acting program on full scholarship. His accolades and performances speak for themselves. Lively's current complaint states she was alarmed when Baldoni introduced him as his friend and allowed him to play his intimate role, in which the actor's face and hands were in close proximity to her nearly nude genitalia, characterizing the experience as invasive and humiliating. It is Lively's suggestion that a highly trained and experienced actor would have an unseemly interest in being in close proximity to her nearly nude genitalia, which, as previously established, was not nude or exposed. That is inappropriate, invasive, and humiliating to the actor. Job. I like this um, particular filing. I like the way that Brian Friedman writes. This is Brian Friedman. If you are not aware, he's an attorney for a lot of Hollywood stars. He lived in LA. He unfortunately lost his home in the LA fires. And he filed this like the day or two after he lost his home, which is like ridiculous that he's still, working and he just lost everything in his life. Just crazy. But anyways, yeah, so Brian Friedman is also the attorney for the Menendez brothers family members. There are 20 plus family members that want the brothers to be freed. They're in support of that, and they have reached out to an attorney to talk to the DA in LA County and get, proceedings, to see what they could do. So Brian Friedman represents the Menendez brothers family members and also Justin Baldoni. Where did I leave off? I think I finished that. Okay, so once again, Wayfair agreed despite being wholly offended by this accusation. So yeah, to reiterate, Lively knowingly made a false statement that only a small piece of fabric covered her genitalia during the birth scene. In fact, Lively was wearing briefs during the scene and was covered by a hospital gown and was wearing a pregnancy suit covering her midsection. This was not in any way a nude or partially nude scene. Once again, Wayfarer agreed despite being wholly offended by this accusation. Finally, point 17, all hands meeting before production resumes. Wayfarer understood this request to be a sincere offer to meet and discuss the needs and preferences of Lively and other cast members to ensure comfort and security while filming a movie that dealt with difficult themes. In that spirit, Wayfarer readily agreed, believing that an opportunity to discuss concerns openly and to plan resuming production would be welcome. As will be established, Wayfarer's good faith belief could not have been farther from the truth behind this demand. Lively, with the support of her husband, used this demand to justify an ambush of Baldoni and Heath on the eve of the first day of filming in Phase 2 of production. Importantly, Sony, who also had a representative on set, found the 17 requests confusing as well. So here is an email, Sony Business Affairs to, so from Sony Business Affairs to Jamie Heath. Hey Jamie, took a look at this following our conversation. No change in my mind from what we discussed last evening. Items 1 through 10, 15, and 17 are basically just, yes, of course. Interestingly, I'm surprised that you all don't already have a negotiated nudity rider in place given the subject matter and content in the book, or am I misinterpreting her comment? Items 11 through 13, I'd want to hear more about what is underlying and what she's hoping to accomplish, respectfully, of course, in the hope that some combination of the studio representative and the empowerment of Alex, presumably whatever that means, again, hoped for clarification, might mitigate the need to engage an additional A-level producer. So they didn't want to hire another producer either. Item 14 is another question mark since it sounds like she approved the engaged stunt double. And for item 16, I guess I'm confused about this one as well and why the engagement of day players has found its way on the list. Perhaps some of the upcoming sensitive scenes involve day players and extras, and this is an attempt to manage the perception of their professionalism. Anyways, again, another certification point. Further, as discussed, overall, the tone of the responses has to be part denying the underlying insinuations slash allegations, but doing so in a way that doesn't inflame or escalate further, since most of what's on this list Wayfair is acknowledging or addressing. And of course, any unease on her part is of paramount concern to the production, and you are committed to working with her to ensure that she's comfortable in the plan and execution of the next few weeks in order to complete photography. Right? I'm going to send a copy to folks internally and ask our production attorney offer any assistance to redacted with respect to the drafting, etc., that they may feel they need. Best, Sony Business Affairs. I mean, just wow. Okay. I don't even know what to say to all of those. I mean, some of them just seem like complaints just to complain or insinuations made out of nothing, which is what they would tell you. That there were no, like, whatever she might have been insinuating, there was no credibility to it. So I don't know. It just all seems real fishy to me. That's all. All right. Before returning to production, Lively had even more script notes and changes beyond what was already performed during phase 1 of the production. In the face of these terrifying and false accusations, couched as demands, as well as Lively's threat that she would not return to production, Baldoni realized he needed to cede control of the script to Lively as she wished. His film would be taken from him by threats and coercion, and there was nothing to be done about it. In an email to his team containing the notes on his revised script, he expressed his sadness and frustration over Lively's takeover of a film that they spent years developing, writing, and funding. Having no energy left to fight, he sadly declared he was waving the white flag and submitting and would give Lively 98% of what she wants. He also expressed serious concern over how to handle the intimacy scenes given the accusations inherent in Lively's return to production demands. Well, yeah, that would be stressful because I would think like anything you say or do, she might take wrong and go and make another complaint. Baldoni asked his producing partners to guide him, and he was rightfully afraid of the risk that something innocuous or not too lively standards would very likely be used against him, as it already had. Continuing that creativity is impossible in an environment shrouded by fear. By now we all know she is capable of. Baldani's fear of Lively's retaliation was palpable, but he was determined to get the film to the finish line for everyone involved. And here we have Justin Baldoni, two members of the production team, and Jamie Heath is on this. Notes of script action plan. Hey team, attached is a revised script with the below notes caveats in bold. This is not final as there are things we need to discuss and then implement. Also, I have added redacted our ad here to have eyes on this so he can digest at the same time as all of you. I've spent the better part of the last few days trying to figure this out. Everyone knows how I feel about all this and how angry I am that Blake has taken over our film and somehow rewrote a movie we spent years developing, writing, and funding. So, yes, I am furious and sad and I will continue to get back up with the goal of getting us to the finish line. I have come to the terms with the fact that the only way out is through I am wavering the bleh, I am waving the white flag and submitting. I am going to give her 98% of what she wants. I'm sure none of us have the energy to fight anymore. The team who has been working their ass off needs a shooting script on January 2nd. So here's where we are. There are minor things I did to each scene. Some I made notes on and tiny ones I didn't. Most of what I touched is below. The big issues are going to be intimacy, how and what we are shooting for those scenes, and how this script is going to be presented to her with her notes. To that end, we all need to get on the phone and talk through it as the risk of something innocuous or not meeting her standards could and would very likely be used against me as it already has and creativity is impossible in an environment shrouded in fear. By now we all know what she is capable of. A producer thanked Baldoni for this thoughtful breakdown, especially considering the circumstances. Baldoni to Oh, this is to Baldani. This is copying everybody. Thank you for the thoughtful breakdown, JB, especially this week and especially considering the circumstances. I'm free after 2 p.m. today or before 12 p.m. As producers continued to request the final shooting script as they were just 4 days before. Sorry, my dog is noisy when he drags his nails on my floor. Um, where was I? So, as producers continued to request the final shooting script, as they were just 4 days before commencement of filming, Baldoni worked hard with very limited time to rework the script and direction to meet Lively's demands, recognizing that they would be in a negotiation for what the final script looks like. Lively's demands continued to cause additional work and stress for the production team. This is from Baldoni to members of the production team, and Jamie Heath is copied. Hey, buddy, unfortunately, it looks like we're not going to be able to send anything until Thursday night or so. I'm not quite sure how to handle, but I'm doing these small rewrites and I'm going to be sending back to the producers and all of you, and then they are going to send it to Blake, and then we will be in the negotiation for what the final script looks like. Meanwhile, on the day before commencement of the second phase of filming, Lively casually reached out to Baldoni, together with Heath and film's producers, to meet in her home. Lively's return to production demands required a meeting before filming resumed. On the day before filming, Baldoni, Heath, and a Sony representative, the film's first assistant director, and two producers arrived with production binders in tow, excited to discuss details of resuming production. But Lively and her husband had a different meeting in mind. Hold on one second here. Meanwhile, on the day before commencement of the second phase of filming, Lively casually reached out to Baldoni, together with Heath and the film's producers, to meet in her home. Lively's return to production demands required a meeting before filming. Okay, sorry, I read all that. Da, 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 da. And two producers arrived at the production, excited to talk about production, but Lively and her husband had a very different meeting in mind. Lively brought Reynolds as her chosen representative. Notably, she did not request any attendees from her union, the Screen Actors Guild. Together, Reynolds and Lively blindsided the rest of the group with a list of grievances read aloud by Lively that were as troubling as they were fictional. Reynolds then launched into an aggressive tirade, berating Baldoni in what Baldoni later described as a traumatic encounter. So Ryan Reynolds launches into a verbally aggressive tirade at Baldoni. As Baldoni later said, he had never been spoken to like that in his life. Reynolds demanded that Baldoni apologize to Lively for actions that had either never happened or had been grossly mischaracterized. Baldoni resisted apologizing for things he had not done, further enraging Reynolds. Everyone, including the producer, Lively, had asked the producer to engage, and the Sony representative left the meeting in shock. The producer said that in his 40-year career, he had never seen anyone speak to someone like that in a meeting. The Sony representative said later that she often thought of the meeting and her one regret was not intervening to stop Reynolds' tirade against Baldoni. Baldoni and Heath left the meeting deeply unsettled by Lively and Reynolds' behavior and the power dynamics at play. So she used a little Hollywood star power and husband to throw at Baldoni. And who knows what Lively told Reynolds? Maybe Reynolds really thought that the things that Baldoni said were true, or not. Maybe not. But either way, he's not a nice guy after that, after hearing that. Um, and the whole we haven't gotten to the whole nice pool thing yet either. In the Deadpool movie that just came out, Wolverine movie. There's a character called Nice Pool that is supposedly based on Justin Baldoni and is uh, basically mocking him and making fun of him. So there's that too. All right, so it was clear to them that this was the latest escalation in Lively's concerted campaign of extortion to extract concessions and creative control over the film, a campaign now apparently joined by Reynolds. Nonetheless, faced with persevering in the face of extortionate threats versus shutting down a film halfway through production with all the attendant financial and reputational implications, and he's still on the hook for money and stuff. Wayfarer had virtually no choice but to resume production and film finished the film despite the newfound certainty that Lively was intentionally manipulating, distorting, and intervening facts to use as a cudgel against Wayfarer. The stakes could hardly have been higher for Wayfarer. Financiers had invested substantial resources, hundreds of cast and crew members had endured months without work due to the strikes, and years of development had gone into bringing the film to life. Moreover, Baldoni and Heath shared a conviction that It Ends With Us could still provide a powerful opportunity to center the voices and stories of DV survivors. It is crucial to note that the list of grievances read at the January 4th, 2024 ambush were new, separate, and apart from the 17-point return to production demands and were never presented to any of the parties present. So there were these other grievances that Lively read out loud. Well, where are they? They were just there at the ambush, but they never received them. They were separate from the 17-point demands. Though Lively's CRD complaint misleadingly suggests the parties agreed to the list of 30 items, many of the items listed on the CRD complaint were new, entirely based in lies, and neither read nor provided to any of the parties, let alone agreed to. The only document presented to the parties was the 17-point return to production demands presented on November 9th, 2023, and signed over 2 weeks after this meeting on January 19th, 2024. Lively's CRD complaint, which, on information belief, she disseminated to the New York Times well in advance of any legal filing, is riddled with blatant and deliberate misrepresentations, as is her complaint here. As Lively admits, filming resumed the following day and then concluded without any further grievances or references to previous disputes by Lively. The parties agreed to implement and follow the protections for return to production to ensure that the film could be completed, marketed, and released safely and successfully as it was. Production of the film resumed on January 5th and concluded on February 9th, 2024. The film has been a resounding success. And I believe the box office gross is like 350 million dollars, and it cost them about 20 million, I think, to make. So, I mean, they made money on it, which might be why Blake Lively continues to come after them with um, legal action. So now that Lively had unleashed Reynolds on Baldoni and Wayfarer, they felt powerless to oppose the couple. Just as Lively had warned in April 2023, 9 months before, Reynolds would ensure that Lively's demands were met at every turn. From then on, Lively would get her way or else, unmistakably, Lively would use her carefully constructed paper trail to destroy Wayfarer, Heath, Baldoni, and the film. Lively completes her I can never say that word. Usurpation, something like that, of the film. The Directors Guild of America requires a 10-week editing period for directors to privately edit and assemble their director's cut. 10 weeks. This period is sacrosanct as it gives the director uninterrupted time to creatively shape the final product, a time to experiment, take risks, and refine until the film fully reflects this artistic vision. For Baldani, this period is the peak experience of the filmmaking process, a time to immerse himself in the creative craft free from external influences. But Lively denied Baldoni this experience on this powerful and deeply felt film. Lively requested, through producer Todd Blake, to join Baldoni in the editing bay. As a seasoned professional with over 20 years of experience in film and television, not to mention growing up in a family deeply involved in the industry, Lively knew full well the implications of her request. but in the aftermath of the serious and false allegations that she had leveled against Baldoni, Heath, and Wayfarer and the production, and with pressure from Sony, they reluctantly agreed to grant her access to the editing bay for 2 days. Notably, despite her allegations that Baldoni made her uncomfortable. Lively insisted on working closely with him through this process. It's not usually something you want to do with the perpetrator of your maltreatment is spend a lot of time with them in a closed room together. So here is from Justin to Blake. Good morning, Blake. Redacted and I had a great chat the other day, and he let me know you'd like to come into the edit before you leave for your film, and I think it's a great idea. I agree that we work really well together, and with all you've put into this film, I completely understand wanting to give notes and have input before you leave for your other movie. With that, I started my cut on Thursday, so tomorrow will be day 3. The movie is currently all over the place, and I need a few weeks to get it into some sort of shape to even present to you. What I would love to do is bring you in on the 18th and have us work together until you leave. Did I hear first week of April? Then, once you are in Italy, as things progress, you can jump in on any free days and even on days that you had a long wait between scenes. I'm also happy to send you progress scenes, etc., with any big changes that are made, as we all know things change all the time during a cut. For me, the editing process is the time to try things and throw it all against the wall to see what sticks. It's my favorite part of the process. So once you take off, we can just keep you in the loop and send you stuff to the extent you want to see that you want to see it as we get closer to blocking the picture. Thanks, Jay. Doesn't seem like he really wants her there. She says, "Hey, thank you for the note. I appreciate it. I'd love to be in the passenger seat with you as soon as possible. I don't need you to formally present anything. I understand that you've just seen the first assembly and have a mountain ahead of you. I'll be invaluable to you if I'll be v- I'll be invaluable to you in recall alone as you put together what you're looking for." She's saying I'll be invaluable to you? Like, here's why I should work for you? Is that I've also been rewatching all our dailies, tons of nuanced gems. The sooner we put our heads together, the better. Very excited to dive back into the work. Let me know. So the dailies is like the film is rolling and you're not actually in character. So there's just like footage rolling constantly. And that's what that is. So if she had access to these dailies that he gave some of them to her, um, wouldn't she know the things that he did or didn't say to her? Wouldn't she know, or is the reason of the dailies like watched the dailies and grabbed certain things out of there and twisted and turned things for her own benefit? Or is she just, she's lying on purpose, or she's just, I don't know, she really has a different perception of things somehow. Justin's response was, "Hey Blake, I hear you." Did I finish? Yeah. "Hey Blake, I hear you, and I do know how helpful you have been and will continue to be. I do need some time to get sorted with my editors and wrap my head around the film itself. I will reach out to you at the end of the week to let you know the progress I have made so we can figure out the best time for you to start with me. Thank you." In February and March 2022, Baldoni acceded to the request that Lively be let into the editing process. Here's some more text messages. Editor 1 says, "Hey, just checking in. Hope you're hanging in there. We're going to get through this, damn it." And Justin says, "Thanks for checking in. I've sat with it, and I think the best path forward spiritually and what's best for the movie is that I suck it up and let her in. I've sent a message requesting that it start on the 18th, and then we would just let her in until she leaves, and then her cuts and updates throughout the process. I'll let you guys know what she says. Thanks for being awesome, Dream Team. Editor 2 says, we got you. Editor 1 says, I think that sounds like a very good plan on all fronts. He says, again, side note, I offered for her to join on the 18th, and she replied she'd like to join now because she will be invaluable to me as she knows every take. I'm going to stick to the date and see how that goes and what comes next. Editor 1 says, oi, and editor 2 says, stick to it. Editor 1 again says, when you get a moment, could I please get an ADR line from you on the karaoke scene? Okay, so not really about Blake. Um, Editor 1 says, okay, let me put together some form of reel 5. The last scene was only half finished, so I will swap in the last version temporarily. Editor 2 says, and hopefully Redacted is working on SC11 pass around this morning. Justin says, also, I think a valuable thing to do next week is going to be to get both of your systems set up in a way that you'll be able to find all takes very quickly based on whatever you are both comfortable with, because I know for a fact that that is going to be something that Blake is going to end up doing. And the last time we can spend searching for takes, the better. I think it means the least time we can spend, the better it's going to be for the overall process. Here, Justin says, let me know if you guys need anything. I'm in LA and at my office until preview. He says, for Blake, should I say 9:30 to 3 each day? And that gives you guys 3 hours for extra notes and other things, or 10 to 3? They say 10. That gives us wiggle room for any powwows before we meet with her. Either works fine. Either works for me. It would be good to have time before and after. All right. So later in March 2024, Lively continued pushing for her demands as what had been a 2-day collaboration extended into 10. And Lively sought to work alone in the editing bay without Baldoni so that she would have full control. Why? Why is she working by herself there? Though Baldoni incorporated 7 pages of her notes into his edit at the very start and consistently kept her involved in every subsequent edit, despite having absolutely no obligation to do so, Lively was not satisfied with merely collaborating with the director. She wanted to be the director and to see her own creative vision for the film realized. And we have editor 1 saying, thank you for getting those all organized like that. Justin says, we should all hop when we can tomorrow before she joins, whenever works for you guys. I let her know we tested. She's asked for all the cards and data as well. Editor says, oh wow, I was wondering if you were going to. I think it was the right call. The Best Defense is a great movie. I know we talked about an 11 a.m. start for tomorrow with Blake, which I think would be a very good idea. I think it's important that we meet with Redacted beforehand in the morning so that we can launch her working on music while we're also working with Blake. Also, she's fresh eyes, so we can talk to her about things that came from the screening. Here, good morning from somebody from Redacted. FYI, Blake started watching movie at 8:30 a.m. today on Pix. She did not watch it this weekend. Justin says, yes, she just texted she was starting. Editor 2 says, shall we meet in my room at 9? Baldoni says, better to meet on Redacted since she will have access to yours, just in case she comes on early. Editor says she doesn't have it yet, but happy to do that. Editor 1 says, what do we want to do about the falling in love montage? Now that I've gotten reel 3 off to music, I'm looking through reel 4 and I see there are two cuts from the walk and talk first kiss scene in the love montage. The first one is obviously from that scene. The second one I think we can get away with. I just spoke to Redacted, who's been through all of the footage, and he said there's just no more kisses from scenes that weren't already in the movie. I just did a version of just taking out that first wider walk and talk kiss seems to work well. Justin says, I think we have to wait on this until we solve the other Blake note of intimacy slash romance that after Atlas, we may pull the onesie out or not. Meet in Redacted. Redacted, Blake wants to know when you could be there next week. Editor says, I can fly on Sunday or Monday, up to you guys. Baldoni says, and would you prefer to be there or edit from home? Editor 2 says, I honestly don't have a preference. Editor 1 says, and so it begins. Baldani says, we could push for you to stay home. It's up to you. Editor 2 says, both have pros and cons. I want Blake to feel like she's getting what she wants so we can move on from this need of hers. For the record, she's been getting what she wants this entire movie, is what Baldoni said in response, which I think is hilarious because it's true. Not hilarious, but editor 2 says, I understand. Baldoni says, and she's getting to edit, which is what she wants. Let's remember that. LOL. Yes, and yet, he says, true. Editor 2 says, I don't want to give her any opportunity to say, well, because so and so was in LA, we could only work certain hours, so I need more time and didn't really get what I needed, or whatever it may be. Justin says, point is, if you feel it's best and you want to go there, or no problem at all. And also, if you would like to stay home, that's something that we can say. I just want you to do what's best for you. And then he says, that's a good point. Editor 2 says, I appreciate your protection and thought. I'm truly game for going if that's what she prefers. If she doesn't care, then save the money and have me work from home. You're definitely nicer than I am, says Editor 1. I would want to stay here to make it less convenient for her since she's going to be a completely different time zone. Justin has bent over backwards for her for months on end. I don't think you should have to do that too. Um, either way, you should do what's best for you, not her. Editor 2 says, if it were Texas or some random place, I'd be much more resistant. I'm a New Yorker. Some of the best friends live there. I love going to the city. Both Redacted are leaving town on trips this week as well, so it's not too complicated a week for us. Baldani says, okay, all good. I'm sensing a desire to go and also have some of you some of your time, which is great. Win-win. I don't know what he's saying there. Um, he continues, I'll let you know. I think the game is to ask for virtual and then give in and send you as a practice. We can just keep giving her everything on exactly her terms. Editor 2 says, like I said, happy to go. Also, totally fine to stay. I can find the post in either. I appreciate you, says Justin. You too, sir. Sir sounded much more formal than I intended. He says, all good, ma'am. And then uh, she wrote, haha, and then make her stay in Italy. Tell her I demand it to edit in Italy. That's funny. I'm joking. Editor 2 says, so are we keeping the thrust? Editor 1 says, I I'll drink to that. Of course, I was planning on drinking anyways. Justin says that's going to end up being a Blake call constant. Honestly, if you okay, I've been reading all day long today and now my mouth is getting tired. That's going to end up being a Blake call. Honestly, if you can get her to and it's the keep it in and it's in the movie, when I get it back, it can stay in. She has approval on that scene. Editor 2 says, even for young Lily. Editor 1 says, I was just thinking the same thing. Baldoni says, when she claimed she was unsafe, she redid the nudity writer to get approval of young Lily too. Editor 2 says, got it. And then I think this is the next one. So when she claimed that she was unsafe, yeah, okay, got it. Shaking my head because she wasn't a part of writing the scene. That's what it was because Blake Lively wasn't a part of writing the scene, so she was upset about it and didn't want a character depicting her to have sex in high school. Honestly, it's all about control, so she could get to where she will be next week. All good. Here's some more texts. Happy Sunday, says editor two. Waiting for my plane. Blake is watching the cut tonight, and we start around noon tomorrow. I'll check in with you guys when we wrap up in the evening. Editor one says, sounds good and safe travels. I really think something good might come of this so far. Every time the movie came up against adversity, it somehow worked out to make the movie even better. Why stop now? Justin Maldani says, it's going to be great, and you're the perfect person for the job. Safe travels. Over here, we just finished up for the day. Editor one says full day. Justin Maldani says great. Should we all chat? Editor two says yes, but let me get out of the building. Then I can call. Editor one says, that was my thinking exactly. And then he says, of course, Jamie would like to join. Thank you again, redacted. So sorry you have to be in this position, yet no one better suited. Grateful for you. Finally, in April and May 2024, Lively's extortionate threats coerced Sony to allow her to create her own cut of the film, a right that is exclusively reserved for directors. So, why in the hell did she think that it was her job to make the final cut? What a self important, vapid actress that I don't have anything nice really to say about her other than she's good looking, she's pretty, but that looks don't mean anything, as you can tell. So you could be a real crappy person and very beautiful on the outside. And as soon as you know what that person looks like on the inside, they don't look as beautiful on the outside anymore. It's weird how that happens. Anyways, all right, so finally in April, she made her own cut, which was exclusively for the directors at Wayfair and at Sony's expense, and despite Baldoni and Wayfair's rightful protests. Sony's reasons for acquiescing to their beyond unreasonable demands were clear. Sony told Wayfair in no uncertain terms that Lively refused to promote the film unless her demands were met. Wayfair, feeling increasingly concerned, in agreeing to Lively's demands, attempted to at least to require that Lively finally signed her engagement contract if her demands were to be met. Even this basic ask was refused, and Sony urged Wayfair to give in. So here are some text messages. This is the Sony executive number one to Jamie Heath, and there's another executive, Sony executive number two. So executive number one says, Jamie, I have Redacted on here too. Redacted has gotten Blake to approve the trailer we want with our narration, the chair kick, the bruise, etc. And Blake is calling Taylor to approve the song, Taylor Swift, who is Blake's bestie and did some music for the film. She, of course, just reached out saying she is asking for time with Redacted, her editor. We know it was conditional on signing contract, but asking if you will reconsider so Redacted can release this trailer and Blake does not change her mind regarding calling Taylor Swift. And so they're trying to, we know it wasn't what was contractually signed, but we want to reconsider because they want the song from Taylor Swift and they don't want to make Blake angry. So let's just do what Blake wants. Jamie Heath says, I'm available to talk on the phone. Call me for free. And then the second executive from Sony says, you guys don't want to play ball. You are going to delay and greatly hurt the movie. Good luck. That is only if you want to make this date. We are going to need to push. Finish director cut, and we can have multiple previews down the road. Yikes. Baldoni and the film's original editors were not even allowed to see Lively's cut, even if just to see how much of their work had been replaced. Let's see what we've got now. There's a movie preview, report, something, PDF, I don't know. And then the editor 2 says, this is great. Editor 1 says, I hope Blake got a copy. Baldoni says, no, don't think so. Wouldn't matter anyways. She has her mind made up. We focus on what's best for the film. It will work out. We're out in the world, whatever that means. All right. So Justin says, just curious if you guys have peeked at her cut and anything has changed. Editor 2 says, I have just been told that we are not permitted to look. He says, haha, wow, when did that happen? Editor 1 says, as per Sony. Editor 2 says, this evening through Redacted. Justin says, wow, okay then. The editor and director is not allowed to look at the actress's cut. Got it. Well, here we go. We will keep taking the high road. Which all this does to me is prove that Justin has been the bigger person this whole time. The whole time. And Blake is a diva. I mean, beyond a diva. Like, I don't even know what you would call this at this point. It's beyond diva-ness. Still believing that in a sane and just world, despite Lively's continued extortion, an actress would never be allowed to usurp his legal right as a director to create and release his cut of the film. He assumed that Lively's edits would simply supplement his work. Thus, Baldoni continued refining his director's cut. So he didn't think Sony was going to be like, nah, we're just going to take only Blake's cut, not yours. But as Lively threatened to refuse to promote the film or approve any related marketing materials such as trailers, posters, and social media posts, a doomsday scenario for this major motion picture, Wayfarer and Baldoni were extorted into acquiescence to more and more demands. This included co-funding together with Sony a friends and family screening of her version of the film, which they had not approved or even seen entirely at Lively's insistence. Ultimately, Lively replaced the film's editors and with her own choice, an editor often used by Reynolds. And the film's editors had to be let go. Wow, this woman gives no Fs about who she destroys in the process. She also replaced the film's award-winning composer with composers from Reynolds' recent project, even though the film's composer had already finished the score with an orchestra, which was costly. Sony supported Lively's demand and even enforced her dictate that the film's director and editors not be permitted even hold on, sorry about that. And they weren't not permitted to view her cut. Wayfarer and Sony found themselves in the unprecedented and uncomfortable predicament of having two competing versions of the film, one made by the film's actual director and one made by a person with no contractual or creative right to even approach the editing bay, let alone make her own cut. But in light of Lively's threat to withhold promotion of the film, as well as her thinly veiled threat to end Baldoni's career, with a slew of false accusations, the studio reluctantly agreed to do an official audience test of both versions again at Wayfarer and Sony's expense. This decision was made on the understanding that Lively had agreed with Sony that if Baldoni's director cut tested higher, she would drop the matter and fully cooperate so that Baldoni would or could finish the film without further interference. Tellingly, in a side by side comparison of audience tests, Baldoni's cut scored significantly higher with key audience demographics. Here are some texts about that. Um, Editor 1 says in our key demo, over 20% higher in the excellent rating and 15% higher in the definitely recommends that says it all. So higher in two significant places here. So then editor 1 says Editor 2 says, here is my info. She lost. Can we now move forward? Thank you. I just wanted to read that. Editor 1 says the only group she went up with in the excellent category was men, and they are absolutely not our audience. And that's only because she focused more of the movie on herself, and men like to look at Blake Lively. Men are such pigs, says Editor 1. Editor 2, I feel like the up in men and women over 35 is something to look at, but it's so close that it could just be that particular audience and or trailer factor, whatever. Okay. So, not surprisingly, Lively reneged on her promise and insisted that her vision be released to the public instead of Baldoni's cut as director, even claiming that the book's author, Colleen Hoover, would refuse to promote the film as well if Lively's version was not chosen. Sony called to tell Wayfarer that neither Lively nor any of the cast would promote. Oh God, my dog just dropped a bone. I apologize. That was really loud and she's obnoxious right now. So I'm probably gonna cut this short in a second because the dogs are getting crazy because my boyfriend's home and they're not gonna settle down right now. So um I got PT tonight anyway, so I gotta get going for that. But where did I leave off? Let me finish off where I was. So the book's author, Colleen Hoover, would refuse to promote the film as well as Lively's version if Lively's version was not shown. So even she's even getting like cast members and crew and the author of the book to be against Baldoni here. So Sony called to tell Wayfarer that neither Lively nor any of the cast would promote the film unless Lively's cuts were used. Baldoni was forced to choose between killing the film and his own career by insisting on his own creative vision and rights, or putting out a version of the film that Baldoni knew could still be so important to DV survivors, even if it differed differently from what it could have been. So he chose the higher road yet again. Baldoni reluctantly chose the latter and stood down, allowing Lively's version of the film to be released and promoted. Baldoni was essentially forced to fire himself as director and allow Lively to finish his film. Like how awful and demeaning is that? Like that's low. That's wrong on so many levels. knowing that it was the only choice he could make to serve the greater good. 2 days later, Baldoni was hospitalized with a serious spine infection. Eventually, with the key demographics being the focus, Sony and Screen Engine, the audience testing company, convinced Lively to put back as much of Baldoni's edit as they possibly could. None of this was officially communicated to Baldoni, but whispers reached him that part of his cut made it back into the final release. Baldoni made sure to thank and apologize to his editors, whom Lively had caused to be let go. So Justin says, I'm so sorry. I love and adore you both and will fight for you and your recognition and sing your praises to the end. This will all work out. It's painful, but it will be okay. And we can rest knowing that we have created a beautiful work of art together. And yet, I'm so sorry. And then here, editor one says, Holy cow, feel better. We didn't want to bug you during all of this, but our secret source has let us know that the new version they are previewing tomorrow has a bunch of our version back in. We just have to keep it quiet because we want to keep our back channel open. Feel better, get well soon. We love you. And all of this craziness, health and movie is going to work out. Damn it. By June 2024, Lively was dictating much of the marketing for the film she had stolen from Baldoni and Wayfarer. Baldoni says, infection in my spine, pretty serious, great doctors, and caught it early. Uh, Redacted, had a feeling. My body is done. Too much stress. We'll be in the hospital probably until Tuesday now. Then IV antibiotics via a PIC line for 6 weeks. Holy cow. Which means can't travel. Holy cow. He had to have a PIC line. And then the editor said, damn, then just take care of yourself. If Blake is so determined to handle the marketing on the movie, then just let her. Perfect time to look out for number one. And there he is in the hospital. Lively shamingly removed Baldoni, the film's co-star, director, and executive producer, who had championed this film for 5 years and whose company had co-funded the entire project, out of all the posters, trailers, and other promotional materials. She continued to refuse to promote the film otherwise. Here's an email from I don't know who, from the Sony executive number three, a different Sony executive, to Jamie. Hey Jamie, we had a very successful weekend at Book Bonanza and the fans loved the book art displayed at the event. We would like to release this art as our second teaser poster for domestic distribution. Since it has already been released internationally in many markets, it only makes sense to use it domestically as well. We'd love to start printing tomorrow to get into theaters. However, this version does not have Justin Baldoni, a film by credit, so we would need to waive that. Please let me know if this is approved. Over Sony's objection, Lively insisted on screening her cut at Book Bonanza, Colleen Hoover's annual convention, hosting authors and fans from around the world. What a bitch. This guy goes out and buys the rights to the book, and then here she is going to those book bonanza where Colleen, the author, is. But Sony made it known to Wayfarer that, per Lively, Baldoni could not attend, notwithstanding the obvious promotional and PR risks. Lively appeared on a panel alongside the author and other cast members, icing out Baldoni from this critical event for his own film. He was not even allowed to review the final cut before it was shown to the world. Wow. Jen Abel says, Hi, Jamie. Just filled. I don't know who she's talking to Justin. She says, Hi. Jamie just filled me in about BookCon. She says, I know this is devastating and such a kick in the gut. I'm pretty or it's petty and childish at this point. I'm just making sure you're okay. We will get through this. I am the prize. Her attending BookCon is a win for the film ultimately. And if she wants to drag her ass to Texas, then let her. You can be home with your family, which is important. And he writes back, Justin writes back, she kicked me out officially from the film now. She's finishing it all. I can't be involved. Music, sound, FX, everything. I'll make it through somehow. Just need to feel it all. So he is, all the stress that he's feeling from this probably didn't help and probably contributed to why he's in the hospital now. Plus, he's dealing with his health and trying to deal with all the stress from Blake still. And the film isn't it is, he's going to be putting out a film that he hasn't even seen yet. All right, so here are some more text messages. Editor 1 says, looks fun, by the way. Picture was supposed to get locked this week. Did that happen? Just curious what version is going out into the world and with all of our names on it. Justin says, I'll watch soon. No idea regarding picture. Evidently, they are all at the book bonanza. Hard. And editor one says, oh boy, Justin says, but second test didn't go any better. Over 35 went down and understayed the same. I guess Sony asked for more changes to get it closer to our cut, but I haven't watched. They are showing it at Book Bonanza. And she says or the editor two says the whole movie. He says, yep, hers. Editor one says, wow, was supposed to be ours, and then I was uninvited. Whole thing is pretty cruel and intense. Uneffing believable, says editor one. Ugh, says editor two. Sorry, Justin. He says, I love you both. And some hearts and hearts. And editor one says, I just hope you love for at least stomach. What? I just hope you love for at least, or at least, okay, that's a parenthesis, or at least can stomach the final cut that is going out into the world. He says, haven't seen it, can't yet. Wow. By July 2024, Baldoni was completely locked out of his film's final cut. By virtue of his role of Wayfarer, he was permitted to give notes as a studio. This only added insult to injury because he should not have to be giving notes on the film, his own film. He should be editing the film. Despite his personal feelings, he redirected his thoughts to focus on the one positive. The film, years in the making, was very close to being seen by the world, even if it was no longer his film. He prayed for the possibility that the film could still make the impact he intended when he first reached out to Colleen. I imagine that stuff like this happens very often in the biz. Justin, um, oh, whoever this is saying, Justin, just wanted to check in. Are you back to 100%? And any updates on our little movie? Just hoping all is good with everyone. Justin says, sorry, redacted, missed this. Didn't mean to not respond. Really been distancing myself from the movie as best as I can for my sanity. Lots of great internal work, finding real gratitude. Been some more hard things over last few weeks that would blow your mind. We'll all catch up soon. Today I have to give notes on the final mix. I have not seen the locked cut of the film. Evidently, it's been worked on more and she's been mixing. I'm getting to give notes as a studio today, not a director. Very hard, but I'm okay. Really doing a lot of work to detach. We made a beautiful baby together. The baby might not grow. Uh, the baby might not grow up to exactly who we thought, but it's still beautiful. That's what I'm holding on to. Very proud of us. Editor one says, wow, I can't say I'm shocked because I was hoping that you were going to be able to not let this beat you down. And it sounds like you have achieved that. And yes, The movie we handed her was so good that even if it's been screwed with, the base work will still shine through. I hope he kept his original screening and I hope he releases it one day because that would be interesting. So the last I heard was that she was putting back a fair amount of our version, just not sure what that entailed or to what extent. I guess you'll find out today. Hang in there, and we'll all catch up when the wounds are not quite as fresh. Sending love to you both. Here's another text. Um, I'm assuming this is from Justin. If you think about it, we didn't even finish our director's cut because she intervened. So ideally, at some point, we can take a week and all just do it together for ourselves. But that opens up a can of worms. So we will need to let this play out for a while before we pull that card. And your door will be knocked on. And the amount of women who feel seen, that it's reaching people all over the world that men are remembering their own traumas and having conversations with their partners. That's why we did this and it worked. Still the dream team. Editor 2 says, incredible. So Lively was still not satisfied. She continued to extort Wayfarer, Baldoni, and even Sony, threatening to abandon her contractual obligation to promote the film or approve marketing materials if she wasn't awarded a producer credit. And though Wayfarer had refused long ago to accede to this request, when it was made during initial negotiations, Wayfarer now had its back against the wall and again had to concede. So they weren't going to give it to her, and then in the end, they had to because she threatened them. So she got what she wanted. This still wasn't enough. Lively later sought the coveted PGA mark on her producer credit, a certified designation licensed by the Producers Guild of America to identify producers who have performed the majority of the producing work on a motion picture. Neither Baldoni nor Wayfarer believed Lively fulfilled the requisite criteria to earn this mark, but that did not matter to Lively. Lively demanded again with extortionate threats that Baldoni, Heath, and other producers and department heads send letters to the PGA in support of her certification for the PGA mark, despite unanimous recognition of the absurdity and the unmistakably extortionate threats. Sony and other parties, despite being adamant not to support Lively's demand for the entitled mark, ultimately acquiesced and submitted letters of support. I would sue Sony too for not having your back, Wayfarer and Justin. However, Wayfarer and Baldoni firmly resisted because Lively did not perform the duties of a producer and therefore did not merit the PGA mark, a distinction highly valued and taken seriously within the industry. Wayfarer and Baldoni refused to devalue the contributions of actual producers of the film and elsewhere who merited the mark and were unwilling to misrepresent Lively's contributions to the film. Having been forced in the face of extortionate threats to concede to Lively's every demand to thus far, they believed it would be dishonest, unethical, and unjust to producers who rightfully earned the mark to falsely represent to the PGA that Lively had fulfilled the requisite producing responsibilities, asking that they lie on her behalf as the final straw, or so they thought. In response, Lively instructed Sony, dog, Lively instructed Sony to tell Wayfair and Baldoni that any goodwill left between us is done. On that note, I will stop it here and we will continue the second part or the third part right from where we left off here. And make sure you guys are subscribed, hit that like button. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Blake and her taking over the film. What do you think of Baldani and his response to it? What do you think of Sony just letting it all happen? That kind of makes me mad. Like, why didn't they have Justin's back? That kind of annoys me. But whatever, Sony, stupid. So let me know what you guys think about Sony. Should they have had his back? I think so. Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you guys in the next time. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye now.